What do these two women have in common? Well, they, like thousands of other women, are survivors of incest, and they are sharing their incredibly difficult yet compelling stories of recovery right now on It's Your Call. Meet Linda and Jessica. Looking at them today, it's hard to tell what nightmarish lives they lived as little girls. They each suffered horrific abuse at the hands of those who were supposed to love them the most. They are survivors of incest. Hello everyone, I'm Lynn Doyle. Thank you for joining us. This hour, we're talking about a topic that people are uncomfortable talking about. Incest. But I feel strongly that only by creating a dialogue on subjects like this can we truly understand them. And the more the public understands them, the easier it is for victims like my two guests to move on. You have to remember, it wasn't that long ago that we didn't talk about sexual abuse or rape or domestic violence. Even words like breast cancer or alcoholism were muttered silently. Well, today, no silence on It's Your Call. We're talking openly and honestly about incest, the almost unthinkable practice of having sexual relations with a blood relative. That's exactly what happened to our guest. Linda was molested by her father from about the time she was 10 until she was 16, abuse that culminated with a pregnancy with her father's child. And Jessica was sexually abused by her maternal uncle. It started when she was about 4 and it lasted until she was about 10. They are both members and speakers for RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, and I thank them profusely for agreeing to talk to us about this very sensitive topic. Ladies, thank you for being with us. Linda, I want to start with you. The abuse by your father started when you were a little girl and lasted for more than a decade. What's your earliest recollection of what happened between you?
One night when my stepmother was out running around, he had me take off my pajamas and lay down with him on the floor. And I don't remember what was going on with me, but it just seemed like that this is what you were supposed to do because of what I had been through prior to that. It just seemed like you were supposed to do that, and then he began fondling me that night. And I was about 9 or 10 when that occurred.
Had something happened prior to that?
Prior to moving back with my father, I was living with my mother, and she would leave us alone or with other people, and the various people that she left us with, one or more of them would fondle or abuse me in some fashion, and the worst being a family she left us with, and that incident was pretty bad.
So this was familiar behavior to you, albeit horrific behavior. When your father escalated it, at any point did you sense that this behavior was wrong?
I did, and I felt disgusted with myself. At that point, I really just didn't know what to do. I was so confused and so messed up. I just really didn't know what to do. I knew I was, I just felt terrible. I thought I was stupid, ugly, fat, disgusting, horrible, and it's really what I believed in myself for the longest time. And I even today have thoughts like that every now and then. And I didn't know what to do, and I just didn't know where to turn. And of course, this happened 20 years ago, so you just absolutely did not admit to anything like this because you were the disgusting person that allowed this to happen. And
did your father in some way intimidate you or threaten you, or did he simply make you feel that if you told anyone you would not be believed because you were a child?
It wasn't that I wouldn't be believed, but he had me convinced that if I told, I would be given back to my mother. And when I lived with my mother, it was multiple people offending on me. And when I lived with my dad, it was one person offending on me. And in my teenage, preteen mind, it was lesser of two evils at that point. And that's kind of how I looked at it.
I promised that we would talk about this honestly and openly, and yet I do want to handle it sensitively because these are very private questions for you. You mentioned that it started when you were younger with your father in particular, where he started to fondle you. Do you recall how it escalated? Was it a natural transition into actual intercourse?
I honestly don't remember how it transitioned. I just remember one night, and I would pretend to be asleep. It's one of the defense mechanisms that we use. If you talk to most survivors, we use pretend to be asleep to get through it. And I I pretended to be asleep one night, and he completed the act and, woke me up and told me to go to the bathroom to clean myself up. And as I was cleaning myself up, he told me, you don't have to worry about those other people taking your virginity because I just did.
I can't imagine what you went through as a young girl to have to comprehend all of that. Did you act out in other ways, perhaps not at home, to show some resentment or hostility or anger? Did you have problems in school or trouble with friends?
I didn't trust anybody. I had some friends, but nobody was really close to me. In school, I went the opposite way. I kind of threw myself into my schoolwork because I didn't have to deal with it. And I read a lot. Whenever I wasn't busy doing household chores or taking care of my brother or whatever else I was being required to do, I would read and throw myself into my homework because it just helped me cope, I guess you could say.
Other than this nightmare when the sun went down, what was your father like the other part of the day or throughout the week?
Well, depends on what kind of mood he was in. If he was in a good mood, I was the best daughter in the world, and he'd tell everybody how he taught me to hunt and fish, and I can do laundry and do all this. And other times it would be, the Bible tells me I can do this to you. It says it says that I'm supposed to teach you to be a good wife, and this is what I have to do, and things like that. And women are good for nothing but sex, and some of them aren't being even good for that. And I just want to make sure you're going to make a good wife someday. And all women are sluts and whores and all that.
I shake my head, and yet this happens far more often than most people who are watching this show realize. And Jessica, it happened to you, but not with your father, with an uncle. Yeah. I wonder how he had access to you, whereas Linda was living with her father and had easy access to her. How frequently did the abuse occur with your uncle?
I was so young, I don't really remember. I can't really recollect if it was every weekend, but my situation, again, which is very common with perpetrators, is that I was left in my uncle's care. My mother has two brothers. This is the youngest brother, and my parents were divorced, and we would stay at my grandmother's on the weekends to give my mom, a break, and we would have a great time. We'd go shopping and have lunch, and very often my mom and my grandmother would go out, and I would stay home with my uncle. And I never really pitched a fit or anything. It just was the way it was. I can't really remember exactly. It was so fuzzy, kind of, and I think it's really important that those who are watching that, sometimes it's not so crystal clear. Mm-hmm. You don't remember, especially if you're 4 years old. I mean, do you remember anything about being 4 years old? Right. But I do remember certain instances, smells, textures, taste. I remember, I can almost feel what that was like, and that's how I kind of became aware of what happened to me. But yeah, it started when I was about 4 years old.
Did he threaten you in some way, or was it more a show of affection, at least the way he explained it?
Well, it's funny. He was always my favorite uncle, and when I was younger, I almost didn't know how to delineate from what was happening to me, because it wasn't violent, it wasn't mean, it wasn't necessarily shrouded. I mean, it was incredibly inappropriate and illegal, but it wasn't something that I felt danger, I think. But he did threaten that I wouldn't get any Christmas presents, that snakes would get me.
The kinds of things that a child would respond to.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And so what it did is it caused me to be an incredibly paranoid child, which then kind of carried into my young adulthood.
So I would assume then that you did not at any time try to resist, that you basically succumbed to it.
He just told me what to do, and I did it. And which is, if anyone who knows me, is the complete opposite of the way I live my life now. But I think it was just what was happening. It was just what we did on the weekends. It's very hard to understand if you haven't been through it. You just do what you're told. And you're a child.
That's one thing that I wanted to talk about, so that people understand the whole concept of incest. It's not necessarily always intercourse with very small children. It's sometimes touching, inappropriate touching, both ways. Is that right?
Yeah, mine was inappropriate sexual acts on him.